Welcome to the fan commentary for The Return of Thunder Part 3. This is most likely Blake's finest moment in the entire series. Now, I've always said that, this was very different to the original Hurricaneger story. And that's not a negative because Ninja Storm, even though it's very comical, it can showcase really powerful moments. And The Return of Thunder Part 3 really hit that mark. It's Jorge Jr.'s probably best acting moment. I've seen him in a lot of other shows as guest characters. He did a really good job of with this type of script because this was Blake's moment to shine, where he saves his brother from falling into this insanity of killing him and killing the Rangers and following Lothor's goons. What's really great about it is they took the idea from the original Hurricane episode, which was again, the brothers fighting each other because they had to get that special power in order to do that to kill them. And they were like, well, we want to keep that emotional impact because it was a huge focal point. Now, certain things were changed, which was unfortunate, like in Hurricane Red was a very important moment in that story too, because that was what convinced the Thunders to join them, because Red was always fighting to them to become the part of the team, make them understand of like what's went wrong. That was lost, which was unfortunate. Now, I would have liked to have seen more on their family, because we also get like we know that their mother and father joined the Thunder Academy themselves. It would have been cool to see like how that happened, like how we saw Cam's mother and father joined the Wind Academy and saw how that evolved even for that little bit. Both episodes versions from Hurricane and Ninja Storm, they function the same way. There's that breather point where the trio has to convince Navy to go on their side. I think that was a little bit more handled better because again it was more emotional, because Ishu was betrayed. He didn't know what was going on, and it never happened to him in his life. His brother was always there, and all of a sudden his brother had went insane. So it was more impactful for that bit. But I think when Blake has to fight his brother and turn him back to the good side, I would say, our Ninja Storm's version of the story was much more better. Even the way they shot it, more of that, dramatic, slow down piece. It just felt more impactful. And it is similar to what they did in Hurricanegers. They took those similar cues, but they adapted it into such a unique way where it made the performances for both sides, go even higher. And even Hunter, brainwashed every which way, he's being pulled back and forth from his family, flashbacks. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't spend a lot of money, so there's really no set. It's just a basic background with all these banners and stuff. It would have been nice if they were able to film in a, actual training temple of some kind, which we do know it does exist because we've seen it in a few years later in Jungle Fury. Unfortunately, they probably never found that location here, but it would have been very, useful in these cases. Oh, no, I am curious too. Dustin does bring up a point that, what is it like to be in those balls? Did it suspend them in animation? Do they not age? What were they for? Because, like, what was Lothar intending to do with them? Because they really don't go into real high detail with that. They captured them obviously because of the revenge, what happened with Cam and stuff. So that's the reason why he took them, because he was just sick and tired of these schools. But he didn't kill them, and he just trapped them. So, like, what was the intention? He never drained energy from them, their ninja powers, stuff like that. Never took the technology of the Thunder or Wind Rangers at all. So it's just like confusing why, like, they didn't even bother saying, oh, we have to sacrifice a few of them in order to make the evil pit that they use in the finale. Now, this scene plays out differently in the Hurricanes footage. Is very different there, and some things don't work, but it was a good way to use Chubo, at least a big moment for him, because he's trying to convince Hunter to, make sure he stays. And it is the similar idea to what they do. The thing that's odd here is if you see, like, Hunter is going into the gas, and that doesn't make any sense from the point of view of him being berserked by the gas, but he has, like, the logic to go back into gas, and it doesn't really make any sense. But in the Hurricanes footage, he's doing it so that he keeps himself brainwashed and enraged so that he can kill his brother. The monster here has his staff, but in the next scene, and when he's fighting the Ranger, he doesn't have his staff anymore. That's kind of a Hurricane's issue, that the staff was removed from the fight, and they should have simply removed it from the scene, so that really didn't question it, but they kind of forgot, so it doesn't make any sense. Now, this always bothered me because the gas is supposed to brainwash you, make you go mad. And they were surrounded by this gas and nothing happens to them. And they're choking on it. So you should be breathing it in. I think they went overboard with it. But again, even in Hurricane, it was inconsistent of like what the gas was doing to people or not. It's like, oh, so you have to get it into your face from the actual first puff rather than it just, around the area where it affects you. If you look really closely up, Blake doesn't actually say his full morph line. He just says the first bit, and then all of a sudden it's just not there. Now, I will also complain about another thing. Now, this guy is in the Hurricanes footage his brother, but here it's a power up. But that's not really the issue. What is the issue is that remember in the first few episodes he turned into smoke. That ability is not shared by his brother or, like, in this case, a power up. I don't get why that ability disappeared from here, or him shooting the gas. There's always be a consistent thing. Whenever there's an upgrade or a new monster version of something, their abilities in the first half of the show is just, like, not there. This is a little bit of a odd, commercial break. I think because they were trying to join two bits of footage together from Hurricaneger. They really didn't have a way around it, so they have that little bit where you see his face and you don't. They couldn't just simply cut right to here because there was a lot of stuff removed, so they had to do this weird, awkward edit. You could see that every now and again in PR where sometimes the edits are very odd and you're like, we just go from here and they're just doing some random dialogue, and then all of a sudden it just goes right back into the fight, and you're like, huh? This also kind of confused me because Chibo knew how to fight and all this, and he's like a bumbling idiot. That's the one thing I never really cared for when they made him a fool in Ninja Storm because of these scenes like this. This is similar in the Hurricaneer, this back and forth, but Ninja Storm goes one step further because now it's more of a personal thing between the villains. In Hurricaneers, it's really the prophecy that was forcing him to do this, and really not the bad guys in the sense. In a sense, the villains kind of tricked them because they didn't want to tell them like you two are supposed to kill each other, which really didn't make any sense in the long run. But there was multiple ways to unlock this power, but they didn't want to tell him this, even though they technically should have from the very beginning. So that's why I believe, this fight between Blake and Hunter, emotionally and, physically, was more impactful. Another nitpick about this suit. Now, for the Thunder Ranger staffs to not fall out, it's actually clipped in above the gray piece. But whenever they have to release it, it magically opens up so that they can actually pull it out. I will say they found pretty good young actors that look similar to them very closely, and that doesn't happen often. I'm glad they didn't speak because a lot of times they just can't get the kid actors to cover up their accent in New Zealand, so I'm glad it was just flashbacks only. Although I will say one thing, it's still a great scene, but Hunter breaking free of the spell or whatever, the gas, it's a little too fast. I had think if they had just gave it an extra minute or two, and him struggling between not fighting and fighting, it would have paid off a little bit more. It's just it feels a little bit abrupt. Again, it's because of the way they had to change around the hurricanes yourself because it was a little bit more because they had to shorten certain things because the episode was going kind of long at this point of where the footage was used. Because in the original Hurricaneer episode, this final arc doesn't go on for 4 episodes. I think it only goes on for 2 or 3. Honestly, 2 for the main story where they break the Thunder Rangers to bring them to good, and then Chubo's revenge fight, which happens in part 4 here. So technically, they extended episode 2 into parts 2 and 3. So they had to rework certain things. I do like how Ninja Storm pulled the jokes. Sometimes they can't get the jokes to land right, Lothor. But in these bits where, like, how Dustin was, goofing off and asking all those fun questions, and also this little bit where Hunter's like, I'm back. I can make a joke. Thanks for saving my butt. Now this I didn't care for because all of a sudden Cam's able to break through the interference just like that, and it's just like how. Speaking of which, I do like how they did mention that why are we allowed to morph, but we can't call ninja ops, which is it's a good question because a lot of times it's kind of confusing on why Rangers are able to morph and access the morphing grid, but everything else is disrupted. And it happens a lot in a lot of stories and a lot of episodes, and it really doesn't make sense that much. And it's some things that you kind of have to fudge in order to get the stories to go forward, but it's nice that they pointed it out. Now, if you pay attention during this scene, Chubo is smoking, and the only thing I could think of is that Lothor had attacked him either with a lightning move or something, and he took injury. That's the reason why he's on the floor and he's smoking, and they just cut it out. I would have liked to have seen what happened here. This is like a perfect example where deleted scenes would have been great to have on the bonus features of the DVD set or something. But again, this stuff is all archived in a vault somewhere if they kept the material at all. The one thing I do hate is that when they shot some of the US material, they didn't shoot it all on a cloudy day, which it should have been, and some things were shot on a sunny day, which unfortunately doesn't match. I always thought the transformation for the Ninja and Windstorm Megazords were pretty cool and unique because we don't really get many Zords that split up into two piece halves and then combined. Although as a toy, the transformations really suck because the Thunder Zords, the way they're structured, they all have for the multi combinations with the Windstorm Megazord, everything splits in half and those connectors break. It's just a really poor design. It's a really nice design, but as a toy, it's junk. I wish Power Rangers slash Super Sentai would use more bugs. I understand why they don't do it. It's because bugs are more acknowledged to Kamen Rider. When you see a bug, you think Kamen Rider, not Super Sentai. You think colored spandex or Super Sentai. That's the reason why they don't do bugs often. But I think they should be done more often because why not? We've had so many different types of animals and vehicles, ambulances, race cars, dump trucks, so many different type of vehicles, hazmat vehicles, helicopters, jets, and animals, so many lions, giraffes, gazelles, crocodiles, alligators, wolves, cheetahs, cats, so many different ones, and we only get two bugs. Well, technically now four with beast morphers, but still, out of so many seasons of PR slash Super Sentai, we've only had a handful of Rangers that were based off bugs. We need more of them. At least Kelly got something here because, again, like I said, she was missing for most of this. And she's missing for most of the season, honestly. They just forget about her. And it's just like, this should happen more often because you would be annoyed that these guys keep disappearing. There's no explanation. I don't understand why she doesn't fire them. But this is the reason why I wish she was not really in the show and Tori, well, not Tori, Dustin would own the store, or even maybe this is the store where Blake and Hunter owned, and that's where we met them, and then they joined the store later. That would have been more an interesting way rather than have Kelly. Well, she's fine. I like the character. I wish they had done at least an episode or two around her, something. They just really didn't think of like her finding out being them Rangers, and then she would understand, or maybe at least want to explore certain things. I would have liked to have seen something like that, but they just chose not to do it. I do like this bit because Blake and Hunter understand that Lothar is targeting them and he wants them dead. And they don't want to be responsible for their deaths. It's just because they're after them. And I understand why they would want to do it. I'm glad because it's like I want to protect people. I don't want to risk anyone just because of I have these powers and I really, they rather do that. And I do like how Sensei doesn't want to push it because they do have the right to quit if they want to. So it shows both angles of the story. While in Hurricaneer, once they convinced them to join the good side, that was it. They became good. They became close friends, which is not bad. But I like that they explored this a little bit over here. Now, this I don't agree with at all. I really wish Chubo's final Megazord fight, where he, grew big, they defeated him, and he had died off, which was what happened in Hurricaneger. I wish that was kept here, or I wish Lothor had, killed him here. Like, say, he was in the Megazord fight, he survived, and then because of that final failure, Lothor had finished him off and brought him to the pit. Maybe that's where we could have gotten a little bit of the inkling of the pit, where we would have seen him go down there. In here, it just feels forced. Like I said, the Hunter stuff would have been served better if him fighting the spell would have worked there rather than this. This should have just been 3 episodes, not 4 parts, and then finalize Chubo's death in part 3 at the end, and then get off the island. If you like my content, consider leaving a like and subscribing.